This content is not suitable for children and may contain depictions of violence.
Hi Islanders, I'm your host Cambo. Grab a beer and pull up a deck chair. This is True Crime Island, another true crime podcast. So, I'm finally out of ISO. I've been able to roam the streets and I've had my corona test. I'm just awaiting the results. Now, the streets in Sydney, they're not Walking Dead empty, but it's not far off. So I hope you're all staying safe and let's get stuck into it. Well, tonight I have a case suggested by Dylan G, one of our fellow Islanders, and I had a bit of a read of what he sent me. And really, what I read just shows how disgusting some humans can be to others. And in this case, it was 4 girl scum against one innocent 12-year-old girl, Shanda Sharer. My references tonight are wdrb.com, teenkillers.org, IndieStar.com, the Indianapolis News, the Age newspaper, the Baltimore Sun. There were court records and the book Cruel Sacrifice by the incredibly talented true crime author and TV personality Aphrodite Jones. So, Shanda Sharer, she was born in Pineville, Kentucky on June the 6th, 1979 to Stephen and Jacqueline Sharer. Shanda attended St. Paul's School, and when her parents divorced, she moved in with her mum and then her new stepdad to Louisville. Shanda loved school, and not only did she get good grades, but she was also involved in volleyball, softball, plus she was in the cheerleading team. In 1991, Jacqueline divorced again, and they moved to New Albany, Indiana, where Shanda attended Hazelwood Middle School, or junior high, whatever you want to call it. And it's here, on only her 3rd day of attendance, that Shanda met 14-year-old, just going on 15 years, Amanda Heverin. She was born in September 1976. Well, met probably isn't the best word for it. And as I said, Amanda was weeks away from being 15. You see, Shanda had met a friend who wanted to break up with her boyfriend, and she wanted to return his friendship ring. Now, this girl didn't want to face her boyfriend to break up with him, so Shanda offered to give it back on her behalf. Now, when Shanda approached the boy and told him his girlfriend wanted to break up with him, and she offered the ring back, he looked at her puzzled, asking who the fuck she was. At this moment, Amanda Heverin walks up, shoves Shanda, and asking what the fuck she's on about. You see, the boy was Amanda's cousin. Amanda shoved Shanda again into the lockers, and this caused an injury to her head. The teachers got involved, and they both got detention. Now, while in detention, they reconciled, and they became really good friends. Now, at this stage, Amanda had been dating a girl 15, almost 16. That was Melinda Lovelace, born October the 18th, 1975. Heverin and Lovelace, they were having quite an open relationship at school. Now, they didn't care what people thought of them being a lesbian couple. Now, during the year, their relationship had gone bad and they were basically split up, and Lovelace had started dating an older girl. Melinda Lovelace, now according to court records, she had a pretty shit upbringing. Lovelace's early years included, among other things, being molested by her father as an infant, witnessing her father's molestation of her sisters, her cousin, and other young girls, witnessing her father's transvestism, witnessing her parents' multiple attempts to commit suicide, being rejected by her mother due to her lesbianism, and witnessing her father attempting to kill her mother. Now, these sorts of experience produced in Lovelace a perverse view of human relationships which made her incapable of recognising or responding to the pain of others. Now that just sounds fucking awful. Amanda Heverin, she was quite attracted to the 12-year-old Shanda, and they started to hang out. Eventually, they grew even closer when Amanda asked Shanda out to the school dance. Lovelace found out about this, and she ended up confronting him on the dance floor. So you can imagine, Lovelace wasn't there to congratulate the happy couple, and it was a bit of an awkward scene. Lovelace later found out Amanda and Shanda, well, they were going to go to a festival together, and this made her get the rage. By rage, I don't mean like a Cambo rage where I go off about some scumbag or injustice. Lovelace was telling people she wanted to kill Shanda. Lovelace sent several letters to Amanda stating that she wanted to kill Shanda. Now, Amanda says that she passed these letters on to a youth prosecutor, but it looks like they were not acted upon. Now, I'm not exactly sure what a youth prosecutor is, but it looks like they work in the juvie justice system. Look, I don't know why she just didn't give the letters to a normal cop. Maybe she just wanted someone in the juvie system to deal with it, just didn't want to deal with real coppers. Now, Shanda had always been a very good student, but since she'd met Amanda, her attitude and grades had suffered. Shanda sent Amanda a letter which didn't have a stamp on it, and so it was returned to her house. Now, Shanda's mum gets the letters and opens it up, and she reads it. It details Shanda's sexual relationship with Amanda, and now this shocked Jacqueline a bit, and not for the lesbian aspect, rather than the fact there was a 16-year-old girl having sexual relations with her 12-year-old daughter. Shanda's mum decided to pull her out of Hazelwood Middle School and enrol her to Our Lady of Perpetual Help School in New Albany. Her grades and attitude picked up, and she got back into sport by joining the girls' basketball team. Now, this basically ends Shanda and Amanda's relationship, although Amanda keeps trying to keep in touch. Shanda pretty much ignores her as she now has plenty of new friends at her new school, and they're all her own age. And she starts to get a little bit pissed off with Amanda's constant phone calls and letters. Shanda just wants to move on and be done with it. So now we come to the 10th of January 1992. Shanda is at home at night watching TV at her father's place. Her father comes into the TV room at about 11:30 p.m. and tells her to turn off the TV at about 12 and go to bed. He then goes off to sleep. At around midnight, Shanda gets a knock at the door. She opens it and there are two girls, Hope Rippey and Tony Lawrence. Now, Shanda doesn't know either of these girls, but they tell her that they're there to pick her up to go to a party where Amanda's waiting for her. Shanda decides to go with them, and she can see a third girl in the car, which she also didn't know. She was Laurie Tackett. Now, Laurie Tackett, she was born October the 5th, 1974. She was the oldest present in the car, aged 17. She had a history of substance abuse, self-mutilation, suicidal tendencies, physical abuse by a mother, hospitalisation for psychiatric disorders, and being a victim of multiple sexual assaults. Tackett even claimed that she was molested at least twice as a child at ages 5 and 12. Tackett was into the occult, and that night she looked like a goth in the black clothes she was wearing. She dropped out of high school in 1991. Hope Rippey and Tony Lawrence, they were both born in Madison in 1976. Rippey came from a broken home and Lawrence was raped and abused when she was young. Now, Rippey and Lawrence had known each other since little school, and it was Rippey who introduced Lawrence to Tackett. When Tackett and Lovelace pick up Rippey and Lawrence to go out this night, they make it known that they're going to kill a little girl that night. I don't know if I would stay in the car at this point, but Rippey and Lawrence did. So that's a bit of a background on these three girls that have come to pick up Shanda to take her to a party where apparently Amanda is waiting for her. Shanda sits in the front passenger seat of the car as Laurie Tackett drives off. Next thing she knows, Her hair's being pulled backwards and there's a knife at her throat. Melinda Loveless had been hiding in the back seat and now had a knife to Shanda's throat. Shanda screamed to let her go, but Loveless told her to shut the fuck up. Tackett then drives to an abandoned house in Madison, Indiana, and that's called the Witch's Castle. It's on Upper River Road, Jeffersonville, Utica, Indiana. It's an old abandoned building in the woods. It looks creepy, and kids would go there at times to party, take drugs, drink booze, and at the time, there was what has been termed nowadays as the satanic panic of the 90s, and satanic rituals apparently were held there. While at the Witch's Castle, the group bound her arms and legs, teased and scared Shanda, but she was essentially unharmed when they left. Now, they left because this place was reasonably popular and close to a main road. They figured they had a high chance of being seen, so they put Shanda back in the car and drove off. The girls went to a garbage dump off a logging road where Loveless and Tackett stripped and battered Shanda. Loveless punched her in the stomach and kneed her in the mouth. Now, Shanda's braces cut deep into her mouth. Tackett tried to slash her throat, but the knife she had was too blunt. Tackett and Loveless choked and stabbed her, then locked her in the car's trunk, or boot as we say in England and Australia, and drove off with Rippy and Lawrence to Tackett's house, telling Rippy and Lawrence that Shanda was dead. Tackett and Loveless cleaned themselves up, and then they left Lawrence and Rippy at Tackett's house while they drove around with Shanda in the trunk. Now, from what it looks like, when Shanda began screaming again from the trunk, Tackett stopped the car, took a small knife, opened the trunk, and cut Shanda again. Loveless and Tackett drove around most of the night, stopping so that Tackett could beat Shanda with a tire iron. Shanda at this stage must have been petrified with fear. She's just 12 years old, being beaten by girls a lot older than her. She's driven around in the trunk of a car. At 12, I wonder if she thought they would just beat the shit out of her and dump her on the side of the road, or would she have thought they would actually kill her? I mean, just thinking about it is terrifying. Tackett and Loveless returned to Tackett's house to pick up Rippy and Lawrence. They decided to dispose of Shanda's body by burning it, apparently unaware of the fact that she was still alive. They drove to a gas station, purchased a 2-litre bottle of Pepsi, and once empty, they filled it with petrol. Rippy suggested a good location in the country for burning a body, and they drove to Lemon Road, Shelby Township. At this point, Lawrence remained in the car when they got there, while Loveless, Tackett and Rippy took Shanda to a clearing. After Rippy poured gasoline on Shanda and they set her on fire, Loveless returned to the body to pour the remaining gasoline on her. After 8 hours torturing Shanda and ultimately leaving her to die alone in the field, the girls left the scene and went to eat breakfast as if nothing had happened. Later, Tackett and Loveless took Lawrence and Rippy home and picked up Amanda Heverin, telling her that they'd murdered Shanda. Shanda's body was discovered that morning by a hunter who immediately called the police. At first, he thought it was a mannequin lying on its back with its arms stretched out towards the sky. The fists looked like they were clenched hard. When police arrived, they could tell it was a human straight away from the smell of burning flesh. When gathering evidence, they found that empty 2-litre Pepsi bottle and it smelt like it had contained petrol. An autopsy would establish that Shanda had multiple injuries, lacerations to the head, neck and legs, ligature marks on the wrists where she'd been tied, and there was soot in her upper airway. There were numerous lacerations in her anus where she'd been sodomised, probably with the tire iron. There was extensive thermal damage from her being doused in fuel and set on fire. It was concluded that she died from smoke inhalation, and that's awful because that indicates she was alive when she was set on fire. A rape kit turned up negative for semen, indicating there was probably no males involved. Now, while all this was going on, Shanda's father, Stephen, was alerted by his partner, Sharon, that Shanda was not in her room. At first, they didn't think too much about it, but they made some phone calls to her friends and they couldn't locate her. She'd never run away from there before, and after several hours of looking and phoning her friends, they just couldn't locate her. Shanda's biological mum, Jacqueline, she was called by Stephen. She came straight over and saw that Shanda had not taken her purse. Now, this alarmed Jacqueline, as she knew that Shanda never went anywhere without a purse. They then contacted police and put in a missing persons report. They keep calling whoever they can think of, and then they call Amanda Heverin. Now, Amanda tells them she has no idea where Shanda is. However, remember, she'd been told earlier in the day that Shanda was dead. That night, about 50 miles or 80 k's away, Tony Lawrence fronts up to the police and tells them she was with a group of girls the night before that planned to kill another girl at the witch's castle, and that they did. She was with them, but she didn't know the girl's full name, only her first name, Shanda. In fact, she said she'd never even seen the girl before that night at all. The investigators who were interviewing Tony called the Clark County Sheriff Department to see if there were any missing person reports that day. They were informed that a 12-year-old girl had been reported missing that morning. Her name was Shanda Sharer. Once they compared all the details of the missing person and the body from the field, they knew it was Shanda. The police were shocked at how this group of girls could do such a thing to another 12-year-old girl. By midnight, an Indiana state cop had to go to Shanda's father's house to break the bad news to them. Stephen Sharer, his partner Sharon, and Jacqueline, they were absolutely shocked when they found out how she was murdered. It devastated them even more. I mean, if that could be possible. After Tony Lawrence told investigators the whole story of what happened to Shanda, they quickly arrested all involved. The two main participants, Loveless and Tackett, well, they tried to blame each other for the murder, but that didn't help them at all. Loveless was charged with 9 felonies, including murder, and the state requested the death penalty. Now, the state decided to try each of these 4 girls as adults, not juveniles, because of the seriousness of the crimes. Loveless was 16 when she committed her crimes, and she agreed to plead guilty to them. The agreement provided Loveless would plead guilty to just 3 counts. The state would dismiss the death penalty request and the remaining felonies, and they would recommend her sentence be served concurrently. She was sentenced to 60 years in prison on October the 6th, 1992. But Loveless was released in September 2019 after only serving 26 years in prison for the murder and criminal confinement charges. She will now serve parole in Jefferson County, Kentucky, according to the Kentucky Department of Corrections. Mary Lorene, or Laurie Tackett, pled guilty to murder, criminal confinement and arson. The plea agreement resulted in a dismissal of the death penalty count and permitted a contested sentencing hearing where the state retained the right to pursue the maximum sentences available, but agreed to recommend that all sentences run concurrently. The sentencing judge concluded that the arson and murder convictions merged and sentenced Tackett to the maximum sentences available for murder, that's 60 years, and criminal confinement, 20 years, but ordered that the sentences be served concurrently in accordance with the prosecutor's recommendation. Witnesses also testified that Tackett, who was obsessed with the occult and the notion of killing someone, had proposed asking Shanda's ghost during a séance how it felt to die by fire. What the fucking fuck is wrong with her? In May 2011, Tackett appeared on an episode of Dr. Phil. Shanda's mother and sister were also guests on the show, and during the episode, Tackett said that if she could go back, she wouldn't have been there that night and she would have done everything in her power to stop it. She said, "I didn't know Shanda at all. I didn't go into that evening knowing anything was going to happen, wanting anything to happen. I didn't. Peer pressure, that's all it was. It spiraled out of control way too fast. It's something that should have never happened. What a load of bullshit. She had this absolute urge to kill someone. Anyone. She didn't care. Even though Tackett was sentenced to 60 years, she was released January the 11th, 2018 from prison. And get this, on the 26th anniversary of Shanda's body being found. Fuck. Hope Rippey was sentenced to 40 years for felony murder and 20 years for criminal confinement. On April 28, 2006, Rippey was released from Indiana Women's Prison on parole after serving 14 years of her original sentence. She remained on supervised parole for only 5 fucking years until April 2011. What the fuck? Rippey's sentence was reduced because Indiana allows inmates to earn 1 day credit for each day served for good behaviour. Yeah, that's good for normal criminals, not this scum. Her sentence was further reduced when she obtained an associate degree and a bachelor's degree while in prison, something Shanda didn't get a chance to do. Shanda's mother, Jacqueline, cannot look at Rippey's release the same way. She says, "I'm angry. I'm very angry. It should never have happened." She's angry about what happened to Shanda, also angry that Rippey is getting out early. She says, "Justice, serve your sentence. Be respectful of my child and serve your sentence." She's never been able to do this. She's tried to get out from day one. Now let's get to this Toni Lawrence. She was convicted of lesser charges. Lawrence served only 9 fucking years of her sentence. Now it was Lawrence who reported the crime to authorities and the first to work out a plea bargain. Now she was released in 2000 after serving just 9 years. Now one of the awful things to come out of this, Shanda's father died of cancer in 2005 at the age of 53. He was buried next to his daughter. In an interview with Shanda's mother, Jacqueline, on the TV series Deadly Women, she stated that Sharer's father was so destroyed by his daughter's murder that he did everything he could to kill himself besides put a gun to his head, and that he drank himself to death. She said the man definitely died from a broken heart. Now, when Dylan brought this case to my attention, look, I had heard of it, but because I consume so much true crime, sometimes if I'm getting a little bit distracted from it, I miss some of the details. I'll move on to the next episode or whatever. When Dylan outlined some of the facts of this case and I saw that Shanda was only 12 years old, I just couldn't believe what happened. When you're 12, even people a year ahead of you seem so much older, let alone 3, 4 and 5 years older. I remember when I started high school, the seniors seemed like fully grown adults. Now, for this pack of arsehole scum to do what they did to that 12-year-old girl, it's beyond comprehension. That none of them tried to stop it before it went too far is absolutely mind-boggling. Loveless and Tackett, for sure, they were the main perpetrators. Loveless was jealous of Shanda, even though she'd stopped seeing her ex Amanda. And Tackett, she just had a bloodlust to kill someone. The other two, why they just didn't run and call the police, that's just disgusting in itself. The fact that they're all walking around free today, well, I did say last week how the US justice system knows how to lock people away for a long time, but they've absolutely lost the plot with this mob. Look, they did give these girls long sentences at the start, but the system's just let them all out early. Now that's really fucked up for the parents, the family and friends of Shanda. As Jacqueline said, it put Stephen Sharer into an early grave after he just couldn't get over it. Amanda Heaven still today says she gave the letters that contain those death threats towards Shanda to authorities. Now, if this is true, why the fuck didn't they act on it at all? I said this before. When people do shit like this, they lose all right to be in society at all, especially Loveless and Tackett. They should never, ever have been released. Regardless of their shitty upbringing, what they did was totally unacceptable. They knew what they were doing, they planned the murder and executed their plan. Shanda's last 8 hours on Earth would have been terrifying, and then to die by being soaked in fuel and lit on fire? I mean, fuck's sake, words can't describe this. Even in this day of social distancing, you hope there's room on the Karma bus for these fucking bitches. Boom fuckalunga. Recommended reading if you want more detail on this case, and I could only give you 20 odd minutes of it, is that book I mentioned before, Cruel Sacrifice by Aphrodite Jones. I only skipped through it. I'm going to have to read the whole lot properly. So, Islanders, that's the end of this week's show. What do you think? Give the comments below. Also, if you want to, like and hit subscribe, and there's a bell there to notify you of new episodes, but generally there will be one every week. Links below also go to my website, which has over 100 other cases in audio form. Also, there's links below to my merch, Patreon and PayPal if you'd like to support the channel. Okay, so that's about it. Now stay safe. I've been your host, Cambo. You've been listening to True Crime Island. And as I always say, don't forget to delete your browser history. Good night. Boom bakalanga.